Hi there. I thought I'd do a quick video over the changes in the past three releases, .6, 7, and 8. I know there's videos out there already covering some of this, so I'm going to keep it brief. And maybe it'll pique your interest and you can investigate some of these things. Maybe I'll give a different approach and maybe cover something that you may have missed before. So I'm just going to start at the bottom and work my way up. I'm going to pause it if I need to do some research, but I think I know most of these things. But let's start at the bottom. Fix improvements with sort by model by location. So what that is all about is if you have a group here, you now, and I'm just going to move one around just for the sake of moving it around. You can now right click sort by location, and it will put everything in left to right order, not name order, but left to right order on your display. So that's maybe becomes a little more valuable when doing something like arches. So again, I will move this arch down to the bottom, and here we go, move it to the bottom. And if I right click sort by location, it'll go left to right across your display, regardless of the naming. There was an issue with handling groups. So if I had a group inside of here, it didn't necessarily get the group in the right placement order. So that was been addressed with that little bug fix there. Clear the red status of a shader after a download. So if you have a sequence and create an animation, and I drop in a shader effect here, and I go into the effect box, you see how it's red right now, meaning it's invalid. If you did a download, and I won't bother doing it, if you did a download, it would grab the thing, but it would leave it red. So just a minor correction there is going to take the red away. No big deal. Fix auto map aliases at submodel level. Can't really display that, but it's when you do an import and you do the auto map button, it's now going to correctly identify objects there. So that's something that's going to be addressed or has been addressed. Some of these are behind the scenes things that you ideally don't even know that it's corrected. So it's hard to pick those up. Dan has added some different submodels that will show up. So if you're on a submodel and the render styles, they'll be different based on submodels now. So you're going to see some different options there. Allow state effects on submodels. So that's something a little different. So this is probably a little more for the advanced user because the state models on a submodel have to refer to their placement in the model. So if you have a submodel that picks out, say, pixels 2, 4, and 6, when you put the state effect on that, that's actually going to have to go on 1, 2, and 3, which is a little bit maybe you wouldn't have realized that or something, but that's more for the vendors that are using that sort of feature. Do I have something? There's probably a submodel here. Yeah. So if I have a submodel here, you should be able to, and this is probably, like I said, more advanced stuff, but you can now place a state on the submodel. I grabbed the wrong thing. Sorry, that's my mistake. There you go. So now you can have a state, and there should be a drop down on the effect setting. I click my effect setting there, pull it over so we can see it. There you go. So now you can choose states to throw on it. State definitions, I don't have any defined, but you'd now get the ability to put them on there. You wouldn't be able to do that before. Scott has added some things to the test options. So under tools and test, there's a new box here on the far right, controller. So you can turn it all off. You can go through the ports. You can do 10 pixels at a time. So that's a totally new Dropbox or no totally new panel that you can test on your controller. That's there. Another one, these are some old requests that we're just getting through. Add color palettes to Picture Assistant. Again, probably not a feature you may even be aware of. So let me move this up here. There we go. If you have a picture, let me put that back up here. I got to find my matrix. Now this will work. Okay. If I put a picture effect on a matrix, for example, you have the ability in the Effect Assist window to actually draw a GIF image. You can actually draw a GIF image and do a stick man or something. So I could say new image and start drawing pixels. Well, before you had to use these 8 colors, and once you used them, they were sort of lost, and you had to figure out what they were. What we've added now is this drop down here that really is all of these color palettes that are up here. You've now got the option to pull them in down here and use them. So you have the ability to load them, create new palettes, just like you would up here in the color palette for your normal effect, but now it's available on the picture effect. So that's that one. Add delete submodels to the sequencer model, right click menu. I am guessing, oh, that was a feature that we found we needed it under here. You could do under model, you'd be able to say delete the submodel effects. I know with something like a showstopper spinner, you might have effects that a whole series of submodels, and if you want to wipe them out, you had to do it all by hand. That's been fixed now. You can do it with the right click menu. Add select and highlight to the tools test menu. Again, these requests were long in the queue, but going to tools test, just basically making some of these things almost say more uniform if you want. Let me see if I can go to controllers, F48. So before you had to like select. Now you can just do what you always are used to, highlight, select the highlighted. So that's just something that you're probably used to. Things that are in the background, in the compiling of xLights, we've upgraded to the version 20 of the C++ compiler. So that's why we're getting a few bugs and issues that we're still ironing out because of this update. A few things get broken, so bear with us. This was part of Dan's work on getting things to work properly with the single strand effect. And part of that was a little house cleaning with the group all arches. I think that is evident and that's really just a wording change. That's all it is. It was always there if we did a single strand effect, and now it says group all strands. And what that means, and we didn't even realize it because it said group all arches. We never understood what it means. And I hope I get it right, is it will treat all the strands like as though it's like a group of them. So you could have a group of submodels, for example. Part of that change was adding new buffer styles. So again, on a submodel, we're on a submodel right now. Oh, I think, yeah, I'm on a submodel now. So under here, we got new choices up on here. All right. Updating WX widgets. This was pretty key for folks that were getting an issue in dark mode. And what was happening was, see how that last entry here is gray? It's really hard to see. The last entry in dark mode was basically black on black, so you couldn't see it, and you thought things are being dropped off. But in fact, it was just being hidden by dark mode. So the update to WX widgets was there to fix that. So a few enhancements, a few bug fixes, and that's basically covers that off. On to 07 now. There was a bug fix that was required for DMX. There was a prior change with the DMX effect, and if I was to drop, I don't know if I can do it without having a DMX. Oh, maybe I can. I'll put a DMX here. It doesn't make sense, but there was a request many moons ago about can we put 16 on a panel, and because most DMX props, lights, moving heads, etc., usually come in 16 channels. It made it very convenient to have all 16 on one at a time, 17, 33 through 48. Anyway, I introduced a bug that it would break because it was originally only 40. It is now 48, so it caused a crash. A simple mistake on my part. That was corrected. Dan found some issues. Here's a reminder: when you're getting a bug crash in xLights, a lot of times, if your internet allows it, the crash will automatically go to Dan's website, and he can see a trend and pick up on it and realize there's if there's a bug or something, and he can go and proactively try to address it. That's a case here where he's trying to proactively address a crash that's happening when you switch to the sequencer tab before loading the sequence. So there you go. So if you loaded a sequence, say from the layout or the controller tab, it potentially was crashing. So he fixed that. He fixed an address with the from middle transition. So if you had a, let's say here, and not sure if I can, there's probably like a from middle. It was actually starting it from the far left or far right, not actually being from the middle. So he addressed that issue. And some Mac fixes, performance-wise. Dan's been doing a lot of things to address speed and improve speed on the Mac OS, really tying it tightly to the metal enhancements. That's I guess it's a code word, or it's the concept behind the Mac OS performance and GPU stuff. So he's just trying to tweak things there. Scripting dialogue not working. Oh, that was, I guess that was just a trail over where in a prior release, it was inadvertently, it was commented out that you couldn't actually run the scripts. So Scott re-enabled that. Scott had to fix the SVG shape effect. That was a result, I think, of either the C++20 being upgraded or the WX widgets. So again, not something you should have noticed any end user impact. Disabled effects. So this was something that he readdressed. So what happened was if you had disabled an effect, if you right click, did you know you could actually do this? Maybe you didn't even know you could do this, but you could actually disable the render on a particular effect. If you're finding that you know that this video is fine and you're still tweaking out your sequence, you don't need to re-render over and over again. You know what it looks like. You can actually disable it. Well, the problem was it was commented out, I believe, for some debugging, and it was missed. So in actuality, it was always rendering that one, even if you had it disabled. So that was corrected. Again, working on the buffer styles, not showing the right things. This was something that was brought up as an enhancement when you go into the face effect. So if I was to drop a face, no, it's actually when you go into the faces. So if you go into layout and I go to, my tree, maybe it doesn't make sense to do a tree. Let's go to a singing bulb. If you have something wrong with that bulb in terms of the data model, and I'll just show you what I'm talking about. The data model, say you missed this number 53, that means all your numbers are going to be off by 1. So when you go to correct that, that means you're going to mess all your faces up. So wouldn't it be nice to know that as soon as you go into faces, it's going to warn you and say, oh, you're missing a node. Better go fix that before you go and put all these numbers in. So it would show it on the check sequence, but this puts it right in your, pardon the pun, face. It says, you've got a problem in your base model. Before you spend time creating all of these submodels, go fix your base model first. So that's just a little preemptive warning. Again, I said some of these requests have been out there forever. Save and use a 3D mode selection. So ideally, you don't see this one here at all, but it's the 3D checkbox. Now it's going to be saved with your show folder. So if you are a person that jumps around show folders, or if you open up other vendors' show folders and they're using 2D and you're using 3D, it was just inconvenient. You jump in and you go, oh, now it's 2D. I got to go back, fix the 3D. Ideally, now it's going to be saved with your RGB effects so that as you jump around from show folder to show folder, it's going to remember that you were in 3D or you were in 2D. Add the ability to add and edit alias and submodels. This is just a bit of a preemptive work being done because there's really nothing using this right now, but we're hopeful that's going to come in the near future. If you go to let's go flat tree, it's probably got a submodel. So if you go to a model, go to the submodels here, right here. Oh, it doesn't have one. Let's go add it. Let's add one and say test. And I'm going to say 1 to 5. And I'm going to say okay. And this is what I'm doing here is intentional. You have to actually click OK and come back and do it the second time. We're gonna address that in the future. But now you can come here and highlight the submodel. You can go under actions and you can edit this and say, that's actually going to be called my spinner. So anytime you are mapping a sequence, it will auto map and say, okay, if I see a spinner from the vendor, it's going to map to this test submodel. So there you go, click OK. And now you've got a submodel on that one. And I believe that in a very soon, we're going to have the option that's going to show you the aliases. And I'm not sure where he's going to show it. I think he's going to show it up here. He's going to show the submodels in there so you know. Again, this is just a little bit of preemptive work. It's only there really to add extras or edit some existing ones. We probably expect you are going to use the save aliases on the import of a sequence. So if I would go and import a sequence, import effects, if I say my Cotton Eye Joe, Click on this guy. There's going to be update model aliases with using mapping. So if I had a submodel that I mapped to, which was my tree, I think, tree, I don't know where it was, but anyway, if I put this and I say this doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to put it here anyway, I could say update model alias. It's going to put bulb yellow onto the alias of left submodel of the tree. So that's more likely how you're going to add aliases. It's going to be better for going forward. Scott's added a new controller, so it will be available in the pick list. This is the Lewis script that I did a separate gems video for. Look for that. It's just prior to this one probably. And the goal for this one was at the you purchase a new prop. You've got a new snowflake, and you need to add it to every sequence you've ever used. In the past, you had to open the sequence, edit display elements, bring the snowflake over, put it in the right order, save it, and save the layout, go on to the next sequence. Open the sequence, edit display elements, bring the model over, save it, repeat, repeat, repeat. This new script outlined in the video will automate that task. Basically, you do it once so that it knows what order you need it to be, and you just fire it off and it'll go and hit every sequence that you've chosen, and it will add that prop. There is a separate script available to do the cloning of effects. So maybe you've got another snowflake that you want to copy all the effects from snowflake 1 to my new snowflake, and that can be done as well using the Lewis script. Lewis scripts are down here under run scripts. Again, check out the video on that. And as we come up with ideas for more, we just keep adding them. And if you have a cool script, they're not that hard to write. They're just like Notepad++, something like that. You can pass it along, and we'll be glad to add it to the system. Dan's got some more issues. He's working on enhancements here to basically says if you've used a shockwave effect, shockwave, one of these guys, shader, shockwave. If you use a shockwave, what it's going to do is in most instances, it will actually try and put that effect on the GPU instead of the CPU for a Mac. And there's a couple of conditions here. It has to be a model of, a fairly large model. It's not going to do it for a small little model because there's a lot of extra work that has to be done to make this happen. But if it's a case where it can benefit by doing it, he's going to move it to the GPU. And the way the GPU works is it's really like having hundreds or if not thousands of mini CPUs. They have very dedicated, they can only do certain limited instruction set, but they can run in parallel and do lots of little tasks really quick. So if you've got something that's, say, going through a loop of a matrix, which is, say, 200 by 40, instead of doing 200 loops of 40 loops, which would be 8,000 loops, you can just say, do this once, and it will do all 8,000 at the same time. So you got a 1 in 8,000th of a time to complete the task. This is very Mac specific code, but as I teased, I think on April 1st, and part of that was April 1st, is we're trying to mimic this same abilities in Windows. It's still very much proof of concept, still much I'm really letting Dan do all the hard work to get it fine-tuned on the Mac side, and we're hopeful that maybe we can piggyback off of that and do something on the Windows side, specifically for NVIDIA type processors. That's just a personal project, no guarantees of any timelines. Stay tuned though. Update the color curve issue here. This is, again, a long time in coming. There was two parts to it. One was addressed earlier. I can't remember exactly where it was. But I think it was Clyde Lindsay from PPD mentioned this before. But what happened was this one tag, if it was all the way over to the right, you couldn't grab it anymore. You couldn't get a hold of this last tag. A very minor annoyance. You probably never knew it existed, but that's the fix, is the ability to grab that last slider. The previous workaround was you had to make the screen really wide, and as you can see, this little tag gets really big so you can get to it. But if it was, a normal size tag, that little window wasn't available for you to pull it over. A little minor thing, you probably never use it, never see it, never need it, but we thought we would address it. So it was done. That's it for 7. And let's go on to 8. We found this was a great one. We had somebody in the Zoom room came in and he could not get his fseek file to work. And we're like, it looks normal, but we noticed it was like, and his symptoms was the lights would just flash. They were like on and off, on and off. It should have been a simple bars effect. We passed it over. We could not solve it. Passed it over to Dan, and Dan looked at it. And I think it was probably 10 minutes later. He came back. He goes, "Well, there's a prop in here that's like 9 million channels long, and what it was, it's like a mega matrix thing and that was just basically overflowing things, and it couldn't handle that size of a prop, and it was basically causing." Gaps in the fseek file because it didn't know how to handle it. It was basically overflowing it. So the quick fix for the Zoom rumor was to remove that prop because there's really no way you could have done a 9 million channel prop in xLights. It never would have rendered. And as soon as he did that, that fixed the issue. But Dan actually fixed the underlying bug so that even if you have a crazy number of channels, it will at least produce a valid fseek file. Keith stepped in and fixed something that I had missed, and I sort of alluded to earlier that on a submodel, I cancel out of here and go back to a submodel, and there's a sub. Ron from Extreme pointed out that, boy, wouldn't it be nice to be able to go right here and say edit aliases right here. And I thought that's a great idea. So that's probably going to be something coming in the near future. But in the meantime, you have to go back to the model and go to submodels, click here. What Keith noticed, and again, remember my point about crash logs going to the developers, I'm guessing that he must have been seeing some crash reports coming through, because what was happening is if you created a submodel here, and if I say add, and hopefully this will work, and I say test 2, he found that if you came down here and put 1 to 100, and if you came down here and said actions, edit display aliases, and I hope I don't crash it, it was crashing. But what Keith has done in the interim is to stop the crash is he noticed the aliases window does not come up. So we will address that, but what the fix is you have to come back out, basically saving it, and then you should be able to edit the aliases. See, there you go. So that was the little quick hack so that at least people weren't crashing and causing, a bad experience in xLights. So just a reminder, if you're going to add aliases to a submodel, you have to at least get out of the submodel after you create it and come back in to create the aliases. This was a little bit of a bug warning. You may or may not have ran into it. If you had a custom model and you switch base folders, it would come up with a warning, and it said unable to find quote model type. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. There was just a little one-off case where it wasn't handling it properly. So again, you probably never ran into it. Model blending. I think this was a fallout of this change here, as he's still ironing out all the issues with trying to implement this metal and trying to really capitalize on the GPU. We run into a few things. So I think he has done some more work on that. And this is another one where something behind the scenes is coming up with crashes when he deletes layers. This was another one, again, as he's ironing out the GPU stuff. This probably caught a lot of people in .7. As soon as 7 came out, we were seeing this issue. If you had a sequence that had sparkles on it, chances are it just silently closed xLights, and you're like, what did I do? You worked before. So a quick fix there for that one. Scott made an enhancement here. And I haven't checked this one to verify, but I'm just going to see if I can figure it out. He says he's added a second set of colors. I'll close this too. So if I go to my bulb blue, go to faces, click here, make this bigger now, I'm assuming. And come on, little window. Oh, well, let's see if I can just make this bigger. I do not. Oh, I don't see it. Scott, why don't I see it? Am I not running? I'm running 08. Support two mouth colors if using force custom colors. Oh, maybe it's over to the right. No? Scott, what did I do? How come I don't see it? Oh, I'm blind. Oh, I apologize. I'm blind. I'm literally blind. So here we go. What this is going to allow you to do is if you've got a, say you've got one color you want to use for the mouth, and you might have a prop that has, so you would make, I don't know, you'd make this green, right? So all of the things is green. But maybe you have a prop that's got a feature like a tongue. And boy, I better watch what I draw here. You can now make that tongue shape color as well. So you might have the tongue here. You know, you'd obviously put uh, the pixel numbers there, but you'd put the color. So you got a second color option now. So for those props that have a need for it, it's now available to you. And what do we got here? Optimize face effect initialization. Behind the scenes, Dan working on optimizing and speeding things up. So face effects on larger models. So he's done something there. Hopefully you don't see any repercussions, and hopefully you see some performance improvements. The one at the top is Scott's change. This is, I don't believe I'm wrong, but I believe it's only for the picture effect and the movie effect, and perhaps maybe any kind of MP4 that you're using. And ideally you don't see any, well, I was gonna say you don't see, you should be able to try it and see if it helps you or not. It's under the other tab. For the longest time we've said don't use hardware video decoding on Windows because it always seemed to crash. So now we've got a feature now where you can enable hardware video decoding. Now this is something we just found yesterday. You should be able to change this choice. It seems like you have to stop and start xLights to get to that, but let's see if maybe I just have to go out and in. Okay, I just have to go out and in. That's easy enough to do. And now you've got this drop down available to you. And I think I'd have to do some research, but I think these ones have to do with NVIDIA type hardware. I know CUDA is an NVIDIA thing. Maybe Vulkan isn't, but feel free to try these. Maybe even consider flipping this on and doing a batch render of a few sequences that have some videos in it and see if that helps. I believe this is the only thing that's helpful in this scenario is on a video and or pictures perhaps, or export your videos, those kinds of operations. It's not an overall thing like Metal is for all of Mac. This is strictly for the video aspect because that's what FFmpeg is all about. As to which one is to choose, I don't know, start with audio, give it a shot. That's what it's there for. Just making use of something that's been available. Maybe it came about with our moving to the latest C++20, or maybe it's WX widgets, or maybe we just, Scott said, I'm going to do this, and he went and did it. Great. So give it a shot. That should be all you need to do there is just make your preference go out, come back in, and then you can change the dropdown. So I think I've covered everything in 6, 7, and 8. If you have any more questions or comments, leave it at the bottom of the description. And yeah, if you keep an eye out for anything coming in the near future. And we're trying really hard to make new changes like every week, it seems, which is really great. We're moving fast and furious here. And of course, we'll probably slow down as the summer approaches. We don't want to risk anybody's shows at showtime. So hopefully this helps you out and provides a little insight of what's going on with these latest 3 releases. Have a great day, and don't forget to like and subscribe and all the rest of that jazz.